An important component of ggplot2 that you may not have realized was going on in the background was the process of statistical transformations. Statistical transformations are the process by which ggplot2 summarizes the data prior to plotting. By default, every geom function uses a default stat argument that summarizes the data before plotting. Perhaps surprisingly, every stat function also has a default geom argument to specify how the summarized data should be plotted. In general, all you need to do is learn how a geom uses the data and produces a plot. However, in certain situations, you may need to specify a different stat argument in order to get the plot that you want based on the data you have available. Most people don't bother customizing their stat argument except in rare circumstances, so I don't want to talk about it in detail. However, I do want to show you one simple, straightforward example. gm_bar uses stat_count as the default stat argument. And what that means is that when you give a factor variable to the gm_bar function, it's going to count the number of values having each level of that factor variable, and then it's going to plot bars with heights corresponding to the counts for each of the factor levels. So if we create a ggplot for the penguins data, add to that geom_bar for our geom, and map sex to the x aesthetic, we're going to get the following plot. So we have the number of females, the number of males, and the number of NAs in the sex variable. Now, let's consider a second scenario where we still want to create a bar chart, but we don't have access to the original factor variable with the individual values or levels. Let's say that we have a data frame with one column that contains the unique levels of the factor variable and another column that includes the count for each one of those levels. That's what I've constructed in this data frame right here. You can look at the example above to see how I got that from the original data. Essentially what I did was use the table function to tabulate the counts for each level of the sex variable, convert it to a data frame, and then change the column names. To create a bar chart from this data, I give the penguins_count data frame to ggplot. I still specify geom_bar as my geom function. But then now I'm going to map count to the y variable and sex to the x variable and use stat equals identity. So instead of counting the number of values for each level of a factor variable, instead it's going to directly use the count variable and the sex variable to generate the bar chart. This does give me a bar chart identical to the one we've already produced, but we constructed it using data that had a different structure.